to the Web3 Prof Podcast.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Steve Luscher, who is a core developer with Solana Mobile. Steve, thanks for being with me here today.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
So let's jump into things. Can you just quickly maybe just tell us, how did you get into crypto or Web3 or whatever we want to call this category we're in?
Yeah, I'm an old grizzled Web2 developer, I like to say. I've been working in web development for a really long time and had the privilege of working in Silicon Valley and sort of soak up the big tech scene down there and work back home in Canada. And so I've been doing this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes with the territory of doing anything for a while is a sort of sense of abject boredom, right? The year is 2021, and I'm thinking, God, how much longer can I do this? It's getting pretty monotonous. And along comes, across my eyes pass a few articles about this thing called Web3. I'd been aware of crypto for years and years and years, and just sort of not interested in diving into it. But near the end of 2021, there was nothing that I wouldn't dive into because I was sort of craving something new. And when I finally gave crypto and Web3, what was calling itself crypto or what was calling itself Web3, a fair shake, what I discovered really surprised me. And it surprised me for the following reason. It, to me, was an absolute replicative echo of what was happening in the period 2005 to 2007, or what was called the Web 2.0 movement. Right. So let's rewind back there. 2005. What's going on? There's no iPhone. The internet is just shitty. Browsers are still competing with each other for dominance. We have a bunch of brand new APIs being dropped onto the web. Something called XML HTTP request, which is dropped in by Microsoft. Microsoft's goal at the time was to build a version of Outlook, their email client, that had some interactivity on the web. You could click check mail and you could see a new piece of email fly in.
Right.
Or you could submit a message and it goes off and you see it update in real time. And so they added this API to Internet Explorer, the web browser. So we're looking at that as web developers and we're like, that's kind of interesting. I don't know, take it or leave it. Why would I want to use that? Why would I want to send XML back and forth to the browser? All right, take it or leave it. And then little by little, developers started sort of pulling at that new technology and saying, how else could I use this? What could I build on top of this? What if instead of XML emails going back and forth, what if it was little JavaScript objects going back and forth? What if I could send a message back to the server or write a comment or make a post? What if the server could send me a new fragment of the page to update some part of the page or update the whole page? And little by little, we laddered up. And fast forward to now, in retrospect, the experiments that were going on in that period were the foundation of what we think of as the modern web today.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm looking at Web3, and what do I see? I see some brand new shitty primitives that, again, no one's sure what the end game is or what they're going to become or even really what to do with them. But day by day, there are builders who are taking them off the shelf, looking at them, being like, what could I build with this? Laddering up to more and more and more useful things. And I looked at that and I was like, I'm convinced that this is going to be the foundation of what we call the modern internet in another 10 years. And I want to be a part of that.
Wow. So you are, I guess you're pretty new to the world of Web3.
Yes.
Considering it's been around for so many years. So one of the areas I kind of want to dive into is mobile. Right now, when I go onto my phone and I use Web3 stuff, I don't know, my Phantom wallet or my MetaMask wallet or whatever, there's pretty limited, I can't really do much. It's there. I guess I can show people my NFTs in my Phantom wallet, and it works pretty well if I want to do that, but there's not much really going on. So can you maybe just lay the foundation, what Solana is thinking by launching a piece of hardware, a Web3 phone, and what is that?
So here's how I think about this. First of all, I want to make absolutely clear something that I found is not obvious to everybody, which is that if you're building a large consumer product right now that, whose audience is billions of people, or if you're a Web3 chain or product developer who has grand visions of scaling your product to the next billion people, I just want to make absolutely clear, those people are on mobile. Like, that is the target. Right now, we have this kind of complacency where if you look at, your user base, you're making a crypto project and you're humming along, things are great, your users love you. You look at the analytics and you go, oh, all of our users are on desktop. That's where we're going to focus our energy. And that is 100% a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason that they're on desktop is because we haven't built a mobile platform,
right?
That is usable to the degree that will enable us to scale to the next billion people.
Yeah.
So this is how I think about it. I think about it as we are, as the old saying goes, and I cringe to even say it, skating where the puck is going.
Oh, you're such a Canadian.
I know.
Look at you.
I don't even, I won't get into that. We're asking the question, what would an excellent experience look like on mobile, and then working backwards.
Right.
So if you were to have great experiences using mobile apps that were delightful, fast, and reliable, what would that look like? And with that vision in mind, what would you have to set up all in a row? What dominoes would have to exist so that you could knock them down and hit that goal?
Right.
And that's what we're doing. That's why we're building a handset from end to end.
So what do you see the main Web3 use case when it comes to mobile? What are people going to do on the Solana phone?
Yeah. So this is a kind of, there's this question that gets asked of folks all the time, sometimes aggressively or adversarially. Absolutely not suggesting that you're doing that, but this is the what's your use case question, right? And I'm absolutely happy to talk through use cases, but I think if you zoom way out, the answer to the question, what's the use case for mobile, is the same as traditional consumer applications. Okay. The use cases for mobile are to be in the moment, everywhere with you.
Yeah.
It's always been the use case for mobile. Mobile is, I could pull out statistics all day long that say that, high 90% of people in, say a country like the United States own a cell phone.
Right.
High 80 or like low 80% own a smartphone. Desktop slides underneath that at somewhere like sub 70%. And then you start taking a look at where people spend their time. And it's overwhelmingly mobile. You can say that over 50% of a person's time in a day spent online is on the phone. And you can even slice it by demographics and access to broadband. There's a whole subset, a very large subset of US users who are mobile only. They may even have a desktop computer at home, but it's not connected to the internet. Their only window to the internet, to the outside network, is through their phone.
That's interesting. People have computers that are not connected to the internet.
100%. And it's a larger demographic than you think. And It's not even consistent across, all folks. If you take a look at people whose income is $30,000 or less, those people disproportionately are what you call phone only users, smartphone only users. That's their only connection to the internet. They don't have, a cable internet or a DSL internet bill going at home. When they connect to the internet, it's through the phone.
Yeah.
So, what's the use case for mobile? The use case for mobile at a very high level is to bring whatever you think is the use case for crypto and Web3 to an underserved audience. That's how I think about it.
I think that's good. I mean, when I look at, like when Phantom came out with an app for my iPhone a few months ago, it was great. but I can't do anything. Like I can't, like Radium doesn't have an app, so I can't use Radium to trade on the DEX or whatever. So, you know, it was like, this is great, but there's not much functionality here for me to do the things I would like to do. So when Solana releases Saga, which is the name of the phone, is it only going to be for Solana blockchain, or will it function with other layer ones like Ethereum or whoever?
Yeah. So speaking of layers, let me peel back the layers of onion here. So one of the reasons that you can't, do the sorts of things you want with mobile wallets is because there's no interoperability story, or there's a very bad interoperability story between the wallet you've installed and your web browser on your phone, or the wallet you've installed and your favorite consumer app or crypto app.
Yeah.
And so at a fundamental level, let's not even talk about the Solana Mobile Saga phone handset that's being released. At a fundamental level, we're building a software stack. We call it the Solana Mobile Stack, or SMS. And the Solana Mobile Stack is a series of software technologies and specifications that, once adopted by apps and wallets, will facilitate interoperability. So you'll be able to use your favorite web browser like Chrome Mobile on Android and your favorite SMS compliant wallet, whoever integrates first, whether it's Phantom or Soulflare or whoever, together. You won't have to make this choice of saying, oh, I want to do something in Web3, so I have to close my Chrome browser and I have to open my wallet. I have to open my wallet's in-app web browser, and I have to go back and reconstitute my state and log back in there. And so all of that will be gone once we deploy this interoperability strategy. It will just be any app, any browser, any wallet, signing messages, transactions, and sending transactions together.
Wow.
So at a base level, that's what we're doing. And the thing to note about that is that it's an open standard, an open specification, and not tied to any one handset. You should be able to use that on any platform that where you have apps and wallets that support the mobile wallet adapter protocol.
So, sorry, do you mean that someone could use this technology on their iPhone?
Yeah, the specification and the protocol is not tied to a handset or an OS. So right now we have a reference implementation for Android, and there is a reference implementation for iOS underway.
Okay, excellent. And as we're using this handset, or as we're using Web3 phones, which I guess, can we assume that this is the first of probably a whole bunch of others that are going to come out to compete with Solana?
I mean, I hope so. More. What's the old saying? A rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yes, a rising tide lifts all ships. So you're first to market on this. Okay. So what is most exciting about this to you? What's most exciting about Web3 moving into the world of mobile?
Honestly, for me, it's two things. First, the kinds of people who have the privilege of using desktops, big gigabit internet pipes, are a certain slice of the known universe. Everyone else is on mobile. So on one axis, the thing I'm interested in is bringing all of these other people into the fold who otherwise aren't able to participate, or for whom participation is prohibitively expensive or very inconvenient.
So here you're referring to maybe people who are marginalized, or people who have low income, or who live in developing countries. Is that kind of the group you're referring to?
I'm talking straight up about people who don't have fast internet and desktop computers, because right now that's the only environment in which you can practically use most crypto apps. Nearly all apps on Solana are desktop websites right now. So if you don't have a computer, or you don't have a connection to the internet, you're not playing.
Yeah.
So at one level, that's what excites me. And then the other level is, I'm excited to see the use cases that come out when you're not tied to the wall, so to speak. When you're out and about on the top of a mountain, swimming under the ocean, whatever, wherever you can take your mobile phone, what kind of use cases are people going to deliver for that? Right? We're probably thinking the same thing right now. Who's going to make the first Pokemon Go-like phenomenon on top of this technology, something that relies on you being able to be out in the world.
Yeah. I mean, so really kind of what you're saying is, I mean, this can be as big as the imaginations of the entrepreneurs are. All you're doing here is laying the foundation for technologists and engineers and creative people to get out there and come up with really cool solutions to some of the problems we have that desktop can't solve. Is that a reasonable summary?
Yeah, I think so. And it's just going to mirror the pattern of the original shift to mobile.
Right.
Once the iPhone came out and you could do all these things, you had a GPS, you could geolocate people, you could be online all the time, you could get notifications wherever you are, et cetera, et cetera. That created a class of use cases that just simply didn't exist before. And I think we're going to see the same thing here at a very practical level. At least you're not going to have people like voom, pulling laptops out at dinner anymore and being like, I gotta mint this. So that'll be nice. That'll be a nice.
It's like, you're into crypto when your friends are like minting NFTs in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, we're going to take it from, you have to mint it on the tabletop to now you can kind of
you can hide it.
You can kind of do it underneath the table.
Your mom just thinks you're on Instagram, but really you're just trying to get into the next project. What do you think about the payments using crypto to pay for stuff? Right now, this is like, I feel like the number one thing people who aren't into Web3 are looking for. They're like, well, when you can't pay for stuff, so what's the purpose of this cryptocurrency? Will Saga accelerate this? Do you think that there is a time frame for me to use Solana as payment at a grocery store? Is this going to help in accelerating that kind of this vision that some people have for crypto?
Yeah. So first of all, the timeline is right now, right? Right now, one of the things that excites me the most about Solana is that it is not just a faster, cheaper blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like we took a regular blockchain and just kind of turbocharged it and, oh, that's nice for all the reasons that things being faster and cheaper are nice because they cost less and take less time. That's not the story to me. It is so much faster and so much cheaper as to unlock a whole new set of use cases that were not possible before. That's what's interesting to me. And just to make this really concrete, take a chain where transaction fees are somewhere in between $5 and $30, and transaction speeds are somewhere on the scale of seconds to minutes. It is literally impossible to build a point of sale system for a coffee shop on top of that layer. Because the transaction fees are more than the coffee costs.
Are you referring to a certain layer here?
And
just speaking generally,
the interesting thing about Solana is that now the transaction fees are just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that type of commodity, like a coffee, which makes it possible. It takes it from being impossible to possible, and that I think is what really excites me about, particularly the technology that we've built, that it enables things that you just can't do anywhere else on a base L1. So yeah, today we have coffee. There's a coffee shop in Redwood City that accepts Solana Pay to buy coffees. You can go take your favorite wallet and scan a QR code at the register. We have a protocol called Solana Pay, which lets you make transaction or payment requests as a merchant, and lets you fulfill them as a wallet holder, all using just your phone's camera. And there's a reference implementation of Solana Pay in the Solana Mobile Stack SDK. It's absolutely going to be a huge part of the phone, both with QR codes and NFC scans.
So will the Solana phone make paying easier or cheaper or better, or is it going to be kind of like what it is right now with Solana Pay?
So it's going to be a first-class implementation of Solana Pay. Absolutely. Here's the thing that I think you need to think about, which is payments involve at some level value, right? And you want to keep things secure. So folks may rightfully have concerns about carrying any kind of meaningful amount of cash on them both on their person, and in their phone in terms of crypto assets. So I think one of the most interesting things about building a handset from end to end is that we get to bake in a story for secure key custody. Today, if you want to use a wallet on your phone, for instance, your private keys, the things that unlock the value that you have stored in terms of your crypto assets, are stored essentially on your phone at the same level as most of the other data that you care about, your photos and videos on your phone. All of that is as safe as you already have an expectation of a photo or a video or something on your phone being safe.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah. Please do.
So, but my seed phrase, my private keys, like I've written down and I keep them wherever. So how is that the same level of security as the photos on my phone or whatever, if I don't have those private keys stored on my phone?
So the key is that the private key to your assets is stored on phone when you're using a software wallet, and it's stored in the OS. So if you're using Android, it's stored in a place where Android OS APIs can access them. Same with iOS. What we're doing with Saga is we're building in custom hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taking your private keys, which are right now accessible to your wallet, and if your Android phone is hacked or someone installs a keylogger or is able to exfiltrate data in some way, that could put your keys at risk, which does two things. It puts you at risk, and it also puts a lot of legal liability on wallet makers, right?
Right.
If you make wallet makers responsible for key custody, that's a huge amount of risk that they're taking on. That's a big responsibility. So with Saga, we want to absolve wallet makers of that responsibility, and we want to keep users' secrets safe. So the way that we're doing that is we're taking the responsibility of holding on to those private keys, and we're pushing it down out of Android OS. So when you create a wallet or import a wallet on Saga, your private keys, your seed phrase, don't actually live anywhere where Android OS can touch them. We push them down into a literal chip on the device, and they're encrypted at rest. So if anyone steals your device and is able to use an electron microscope to read those secrets outside of the chip, they would still need your passphrase, which is in your brain, to be able to decrypt them. And you might think, well, how do I do anything with them? How do I sign a transaction or send a transaction if they're all in this chip that won't cough them up? So what we do instead is we say, okay, wallet, if you have a transaction you want me to sign, push the transaction into the chip too, and ask the chip, hey, user has this transaction. Can you please sign it for me? The chip at that point blanks out your screen in a way that Android can't read it, cannot be screenshotted.
Interesting.
And it presents some user interface in front of you after the Android OS. Like Android OS can't even draw to the screen at that point. And it says, hey, unlock your seed so I can sign this transaction on behalf of this wallet. And any tap that you make on the screen also doesn't make it all the way to Android OS. This chip now has full control of both the input device and the screen of your phone in such a way that the taps can't be key logged, and the screen can't be screenshotted. So you can sort of enter your passphrase at that point, or you can boot the fingerprint sensor on the back to authorize that seed to sign that transaction. And then the transaction pops back out of the chip into the wallet, signed.
Wow.
And then at that point, the wallet can continue to send it to the network and continue on its merry way. So the thing to note is that today, wallet makers are responsible for keeping your keys safe. It's a tremendous responsibility, and it puts them at a huge amount of risk.
Mm-hmm.
Your secrets live at a layer that is sort of on equal footing with the other sensitive information on your phone, like photos and videos and stuff like that. And it's subject to, the same way that someone could exfiltrate data from your phone through a hack or a 0-day, your keys also live on that layer. We're taking those keys and we're pushing them out of your phone's OS and out of the wallet's hands and into dedicated hardware that's designed to do one thing and one thing only: sign messages and sign transactions.
So earlier you had said that there's a potential that Solana Mobile Stack could be used on iPhone, but the phone itself, the iPhone, doesn't have this type of technology hardware, right? So how would that be integrated to have the same level of security that you would have on the actual Solana phone hardware?
Yeah, ball is in Apple's court. So the Solana Mobile Stack is a kind of a graduated. There's a gradation here. You can implement the Solana Mobile Stack on any platform, and you get the benefits of interoperability and all of those nice things. Saga is going to add value in and on top of that.
Yeah.
In terms of having a story for secure key custody, and also just being a pretty badass flagship Android device that we hope you're going to love to use.
And so when do you think that it's realistic? Is it realistic to think like in the next year or two that iPhones will have the same capabilities?
Here's my hope. My hope is that I can sit here on your podcast and I can talk about these things all day long, but that is no substitute for being able to take this thing and put it into your hands.
Right.
And it's my belief that once people see it and touch it, that they'll go, why doesn't everything else work like this? And it will be at that point where we'll reach sort of an event horizon where there'll be pre that realization and post that realization. And once people see it, they'll demand no less from every other manufacturer on earth.
Excellent. When this is released to the public, what are you going to use your Solana phone for in ways that you haven't been able to use your regular phone for?
That's so funny. That's not where I thought you were going to go with that question.
What do you think I was going to ask you?
I thought you were going to say, once this is released to the public, what are you going to do?
Oh, that would be my next question.
Because it'll be done, right?
Yeah, you'll be done. Well, maybe they'll meet people.
That's how software works, right?
People will need tech
release
support.
It's done.
Maybe you can be the guy answering the phone for tech support at that point. Okay, so what are you most excited to use your phone for? That's the question I want you to answer.
Yeah. What am I most excited about?
Because will there be like applications right away that like I'm going to get my Solana phone in the mail in February and then I'll be able to like, boom, there's things here already like our company's building right now?
Yeah. So literally as we speak, we are in contact with a handful of existing Solana apps.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean literally as in today, having them upgrade their systems to be compatible with the phone when it's released. So we're trying to get way ahead of that curve so that when you get your handset in your hands and you turn it on and you go to your favorite website that you're used to using or you already use, chances are it'll be compatible from day zero.
Okay.
So that's one goal of mine, taking existing Solana apps that are fundamentally websites and making sure that they're compatible with the mobile wallet adapter from day zero. It's going to be up to the websites, up to the products, whether they're delightful to use on mobile. There's probably a lot of work to do on their part to make things delightful to use on small screens, and et cetera. But from the wallet adapter perspective, we're going to try and get way ahead of the curve. The other thing that's going to launch on day zero is going to be something called the Solana dapp store. So we are going to, pre-installed on Saga is going to be an app store that is dedicated to crypto apps. So yes, there will be Solana Mobile Stack compliant wallets in there for download that are compatible with the standard out of the box. There are going to be apps which have published, and then obviously more coming along the way. So from day zero, the situation should be any website that has upgraded to the standard will be interoperable with any wallet that has upgraded to the standard. Plus, we'll start to see some brand new native mobile apps that release on the store.
I think it's interesting in crypto. We often hear like about the unbanked. Look at the unbanked. They can use crypto and they can buy Bitcoin and finally they can transact electronically or digitally. But I'm not sure that they really can. But I wonder if what is actually happening here with kind of a Web3 first phone is that, people who are truly unbanked, but who have a phone may be able to actually engage in the technology. I think what we often see in society is like, maybe we've seen in India is that a lot of people never owned a desktop computer or a laptop. They just went straight into mobile ownership. Or we see this in, in many developing countries where they never had landlines. There was never phones until cell phones came along. They kind of skipped this whole iteration of technology. Is this what we could see happening here with Web3 phones?
You're exactly right. I haven't brought data, but I think it's safe to say that the intersection between folks for whom a phone is their only connection to the internet and folks who are unbanked or underbanked is probably a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
I know that in some regions of the world, when you ask folks, if you do user research and you say, hey, can you pull out your phone and go on the internet? They pull out their phone and they tap Facebook. Like there's no distinction
right
in those people's minds
Interesting.
between the internet and the Facebook icon on their phone, because that was their first introduction to the internet, period, ever in their entire lives. So I think you're absolutely right that there's probably a lot of overlap between those populations.
I think that kind of brings maybe potential for a lot of social good for a movement like this. I think a lot of times in crypto, it's kind of like, well, make money, flip JPEGs, like get rich, like all this kind of stuff, pump and dump and shill and all these terms we hear. And I think maybe this adds another level of like social good where this is actually good for society. Now, one question I'd like to ask you is, what is the drawback? What is the negatives of a Web3 mobile for a Web3 first when it comes to mobile? Is there anything bad that could come out of this?
I think that the bad, I don't think that there is a lot bad about bringing more people into the tent, first of all. And I think that the move to mobile is going to very trivially bring more and different kinds of people into the big tent, which I think will be good for everything overall. I do worry sometimes about the nature of self-custody itself and the degree to which people are ready to take on the responsibility of self-custody. So, for people for whom are like, what are you talking about? If you have a problem with, your credit card, someone steals your credit card and, charges it at a gas station 8 towns down the road. Your credit card, being a highly centralized intermediary, will usually take care of it for you. They'll annul those charges. They'll absorb it into their operating costs, and et cetera, et cetera. Life kind of goes on. There are a number of drawbacks to having large centralized entities like that. None the least of which I'm sure PBS has covered like 1,000 times. Some say the antidote to this is self-custody, saying, no, nobody holds my assets except for myself. My ability to sign for my own assets is, equivalent to ownership of those assets, et cetera, et cetera. But self-custody requires a level of discipline, the likes of which no consumer has ever seen. In this case, your private keys, your seed phrase is in every way equivalent to ownership of all of those assets. And that's my only worry, that as our traditional preconceptions of ownership collide with the reality of self-custody, the education gap or the gap in discipline between what self-custody demands and what we're prepared to deliver could result in people losing their assets, getting hurt, et cetera.
I guess
that's the part that worries me. And when we take it to a broader audience, folks' level of familiarity with these concepts is there's going to be greater variation than there is today. There is already a ton of variation. As we take it to a larger audience, that's only going to increase. This is something that I think needs to be solved. And yeah, I encourage people to face this problem head on, because if we want this to succeed, we need to figure out responsible, safe, secure self-custody.
I guess the last time that people have had that level of self-custody, or the people who have that level of self-custody, are people who just hold cash and don't use the banks.
Yeah.
Which there are very few people who do so.
Those people have good habits.
Those people have good habits. They're not the ones we're worried about. They're also probably the people who don't own cell phones, most likely. So they're not in this use case. So I think that's really interesting, because the whole idea of these private keys is a bit of a scary scenario for a lot of people. And I mean, there's all kinds of different techniques that people engage in to try to add levels of security. But at the end of the day, they're 12 or 24 words that you could really screw up if you lose them or put them into the wrong hands or whatever. And so that I think that's a really valid concern that you have, that hopefully the market will work out here as we progress through this.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to take. There's probably going to be some contribution from these three areas, right? Education of the existing populace, some kind of something. Secondarily, maybe some just brilliant system for watertight social recovery, or just like great technical systems that are built up to protect people from bad outcomes, or whether it's just going to take a generational churn.
Yeah.
Whether people my age and up are just hosed, and people who are being born now and will grow up with the concept of self-custody just being like air and water. Whether it's going to take generational churn for this, for bad outcomes to sort of fade into the background. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's great. Maybe it will be a generational thing. This has been a really interesting conversation. I feel like we're ending on a negative note, but maybe that's just the way it's going to be today.
That's what I always try and deliver.
This is what Stephen Luscher brings to the table here, guys.
That's my brand.
This is great, Stephen. I really appreciate you coming in. Super educational, super interesting for me, because I think the vision behind Solana Mobile Stack and the hardware is just fascinating, and I'm excited to see it come to market. And this is a really great learning experience for me, and I'm sure it will be for everybody who's listening. So thanks so much for being with me.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Thanks, man.